There's no easy way to say it. 2017 was a total and complete disaster for the New York Giants. A team coming off of a playoff appearance the year before. Plenty of people thought that this was a playoff team again, potentially with some Super Bowl aspirations, and then the season kicks off. You get Brandon Marshall going down for the year with an injury. Odell Beckham Jr. going down for the year with an injury. The whole Eli Apple debacle. And then to top it all off, Ben McAdoo clearly losing his team, losing his locker room. Late in the year decides that after all those games, after all those years of consecutive starts, he's going to bench Eli Manning for Geno Smith. To only have done that then for 1 week and then go right back to Eli Manning. Like, that to me is the height of the stupidity of what Ben McAdoo's time as the head coach of the Giants ultimately represented. It's one thing to bench Eli Manning because your season's down the toilet, but you know you didn't have a future with Geno Smith. I mean, I know he ended up getting cut anyways recently, but, you know, you would have thought at least, hey, if you're going to do that, at least play Davis Webb, at least play the guy that had a third-round pick used on him. If you're going to bench somebody like Eli, then it better be because you're really truly looking at the future. To sit there and just make the move, which basically felt like for the sake of all making the move, makes absolutely no sense. So it's not a surprise to see that McAdoo and General Manager Jerry Reese were both sent packing as they deserved to, as they should have been. Especially Reese, but both of them are gone now, so Giants fans can rejoice a little bit. Got new leadership, got a new head coach, and you've still got some of the pieces in place from a team that just made the playoffs in 2016. So there's reason to have some excitement, especially when you look at some of the things you've added to the team. Now, sure, Brandon Marshall's gone, but what are you really missing? Jason Pierre-Paul's gone via trade, but again, I think you're okay with that. You bring in Alec Ogletree via trade. Linebacker has been such a dearth of a position of need for so long for this Giants organization. Ogletree should be a massive immediate upgrade. You bring in Nate Solder via free agency. He's not the best left tackle in the world, but he's solid at least, and most certainly better than anything you were getting out of Eric Flowers playing that position. So there's an upgrade there at a significant area of another need for this team. And then you hope you're getting back a healthy Odell Beckham Jr. And when you've got Odell Beckham Jr. on the field, he is a difference maker, a true explosive game changer, game breaker. Then you look at the draft, and one of the benefits of having a crappy in-the-toilet season, you are able to get high draft picks that you can utilize on guys that you feel like could contribute right away, like Saquon Barkley at number 2, and then early in round 2 getting a big mauler inside on that offensive line like Will Hernandez, getting a defensive lineman like B.J. Hill who should be a good fit for you and be able to contribute some at least right away. It's not all bad. And when you look at Saquon Barkley, he kind of fits that modern mold of what you want out of an NFL running back. A guy that can hurt you in a variety of different ways, and when you look at him, you could talk about whether or not it's worth taking a running back number 2 overall. You could talk about some of the struggles he had in college running between the tackles. But looking at Saquon Barkley, he is also a guy that you look at and you say he's positioned from day one to come in and contribute in the league in a big-time way, even if it comes more so as a pass catcher and a receiver and a game breaker that way. He can be a game breaker for this team. And when you look at the recent success of teams drafting running backs 4th overall. You look at the Jags taking Fournette last year. They made it to the AFC Championship game. 2016. You look at the Cowboys taking Ezekiel Elliott as a rookie. They went, 13-3 and made it to the divisional round of the playoffs. So there's a recent precedent here of taking a running back high, paying off massively instantly. And the Giants and their fans, the organization, all certainly hope that Saquon Barkley could be that guy. So when I look at this team heading into the season, here's what they got going for them. To me, they got the possibility with a veteran aging quarterback like Eli Manning to have surrounded him with 3 young studs at skill positions. Obviously, Odell Beckham Jr. is truly an elite wide receiver in the National Football League. That goes without saying. But Evan Engram showed you some flashes and some glimpses of the big play possibility and potential that he can bring to the tight end position. Now you throw in somebody like a Saquon Barkley. This Giants offense has the potential, if those guys are healthy and on the field, that if Eli Manning doesn't truly fully fall off the cliff, you could have some big-time explosive playmaking ability out of that offense that rivals anybody in the National Football League. And you bring in somebody like Pat Shurmur as a play caller who did some really good things last year in Minnesota with Case Keenum. You look at the Vikings, they were one game away from going to the Super Bowl with, frankly, an average starting quarterback. And even if you want to go before that, you look at how Sam Bradford had played in 2016, his completion percentage, and that first game of 2017, and how much more comfortable Sam Bradford looked before Sam Bradford became Sam Bradford that we all know. You say, hey, Pat Shurmur, yeah, maybe first go around as a head coach wasn't successful, but sometimes these guys figure it out the second time, and you've got a veteran established quarterback, and you've got some weapons to work with on the offensive side of the ball, and even defensively. You've got Snacks Harrison, one of the best run stuffers on the defensive line in all of the league, if not the very best. You've got a couple of studs in the secondary like Janoris Jenkins and Landon Collins, a former Defensive Player of the Year type of guy. I mean, this is a team that has some talent, has quite a bit of talent. And not only has some talent, they have some big-time difference makers potentially in some big-time spots. There are a lot of teams that wish they had that number of guys at so many areas like the Giants do. But here are my concerns for them. Their personnel for the 3-4 defense, I still don't know if they really have the type of personnel they need in order to be able to run the scheme that they have. I also look at the Eli Apple situation. What is Eli Apple going to be this year? And it is significant because this is a guy you're talking about that was a 10th overall pick just 2 years ago. You're expecting him to be a stud outside, and last year was a disaster. If Eli Apple is a disaster again this year, then it just throws the Giants' defense way out of whack. But if Eli Apple can live up to being a first-round pick, then Eli Apple makes this Giants defense a whole lot better. I have to say, I still have concerns about Eli Manning. You might get tired of hearing about him, but they're true. He's not terrible, but he's not great. And having all these speedy, explosive options on the outside in Beckham Jr., Ingram, Barkley when he's lined up in the slot or outside wide, that's great and all. But if Eli doesn't have the ability to find these guys by going through his progressions, and too often Eli is too consistent in locking into his primary target, and he lacks the arm and consistency to be able to hit these guys in playmaking positions, none of this other crap is going to matter. So it is going to be hugely critical for head coach Pat Shurmur and the way he structures his play calling and his game plans to make sure that he puts Eli Manning in good situations. Part of what would help that is for Saquon Barkley to be a presence on the ground in the running game because, man, that sure would take a lot of pressure off of Eli and that offense. It would take a lot of pressure off of that offensive line and pass protection. It would also help keep the defense off the field. The fresher you can keep a defense, the better they're going to be for it. And I still have some concerns about the vibe and chemistry of the locker room. Sometimes getting rid of a couple of guys can help. Sometimes getting rid of the head coach can help. Sometimes you still have enough other bad elements there that it could still be an impact. And I still worry that this team could have some issues and have some trouble really vibing and gelling and having the type of chemistry they need to really be that type of team. And I know a lot of people are very high on the Giants right now, talking about them winning the division, making the playoffs, and all of this. And all that is certainly possible. And it's really hard to project the NFC East because I feel like it's going to be a really tough competitive division this year. To me, it's also really hard to stack rank the NFC in general because you have a lot of teams that can do some really good things. Like I said, when talking about the Redskins, the NFC has become kind of the NFL's version of the NBA Western Conference. Deeper, better at the top, middle, even at the lower levels. But when you look at the Giants' schedule to start off the year, the schedule makers did not do them any favors. First 8 games of the season. Hosting Jacksonville, team that went to the AFC Championship game last year. You can win that game, but if you don't, look out. Because in the next 2 weeks, you go to Dallas, who hopes to have Ezekiel Elliott still in the fold. He is not suspended again. Going to Houston, who knows what you get out of the wild card that could be Deshaun Watson in 2018. Then you go and you host New Orleans, a team that went into the playoffs last year, won their division. You got to go to Carolina, another team that made the playoffs last year. Hosting Philly, who won the Super Bowl last year. Going to Atlanta, who was a 2-point conversion away or so from making it to the NFC Championship game. And then you host the Redskins, a divisional game. Those are always hard to predict. Like, I look at the Giants right now, and I look at the schedule, and I look at it and I say they'd be lucky to be 4-4. It's very possible they could start off 2-6 and 3-5, but play a lot of close games and lose some close games. And that's just the way the cookie could crumble for them. And by the time you would get to the second half of the season, it might not matter because they might have lost too much ground. Look, I can definitely see why people are high on the Giants. I also still feel like there are legitimate reasons to be concerned on a variety of different levels that I've already laid out. So for my money, I look at the Giants and I think they're 8-8, maybe 9-7, third in the NFC East, maybe hanging in the mix of potentially getting into a wild card spot, but I just don't believe in them enough to get it done this year. Even though, again, the recent precedent of taking a running back in the top 5 indicates this is a playoff team this year, and I understand I might be wrong on this, but I just feel like they'll be close, but not quite good enough for that in 2018.